Don't think that we've forgotten about our fearless dictator north of the border up in Canada. Yes, Justin Trudeau, the lover of freedom, democracy, and transparency, all wrapped up inside of a Tim Hortons donut. As the war in Ukraine was starting to unfold and Trudeau's government was telling truckers what they could do with their bodies, Justin Trudeau put on his best acting performance and issued a statement about just what we'd expect him to do. That is to kick out the Russian media from Canada. So this was back in February. Remember when he sent that out, that we were going to eliminate Russian, let's see if I have it here. We were going to eliminate Russian journalists from Ukraine, right? This was at the same time, of course, that he was pushing back the online censorship bill.
Yes.
So if you are a Russian journalist inside of Canada, you are pulled out of Canada, right? You are moved out. You literally banned RT, as Viva Frey says. You literally banned RT from Canadian airwaves, you gaslighting hypocrite. So that's what happened. CRT bans Russian state-run broadcast RT from Canadian airwaves. That was back on March 16th. That's when Justin Trudeau did that. Well, then, of course, just yesterday, Russia kind of says, hey, it's been a couple months now, and we don't like that your Canadian journalists are maybe not telling the truth about what's happening in the war. And that's their justification. So they said, you know what, Canadian journalists here in Russia, go home. Like, we don't want you. 2 months, March, April, May, like Russia let Canadian journalists in and continue to allow them in their country, but Canada wouldn't allow RT into their country on their airwaves. And so now people are freaking out.
Let's just condemn both moves, okay? You should not be kicking journalists out of your borders, period. So I just want to make that clear in case we're making it seem like that's acceptable, that Russia expelled the Canadian journalists. That's not.
No, we condemned Zelensky when he kicked out, he
closed down opposition media, including opposition channels inside Ukraine.
Anytime you're getting rid of journalists, or like when you're Israel and you're shooting journalists in the head, that's also bad.
Zelensky has some of them on a hit list, so that's kind of bad.
So today, in response to Canadian journalists being expelled from Moscow, Justin Trudeau writes on Twitter, Putin's decision to expel Canadian media from Moscow is an attempt to silence them from reporting the facts, and it is unacceptable. Journalists must be able to work safely, free from censorship, intimidation, and interference. That is something Canada will always stand up for. To which I just want to play the Ace Ventura clip. It was like, really?
Right.
I can't take this tweet seriously at all.
So Eva Bartlett, who is a Canadian journalist who has been covering this war on the ground, one of the few independent journalists who is there covering this, says that the PM of a country which routinely prevents Russian media from reporting in Canada, and also a PM who supports Nazis in Ukraine and seemingly has no problem with a Canadian journalist, me, being on Ukraine's hit list. So yes, she is a Canadian journalist who is on Ukraine's hit list, which we featured here on the show. She discusses it at length in our interview. You should go watch that interview that I did with Eva Bartlett here on the channel.
And she is Canadian.
Yes.
So she would think that he would maybe prioritize her safety first, right? Because she is actually on a hit list from the Azov Brigade battalion. And so, you would think that she's got something to say about that.
Yeah, she has a point. I would say she has something that she's allowed to say about this, I would think. And so here is Nina Bizantania, who says, that's a lot of words, Trudeau, about censorship and intimidation. Earlier this year, Canada banned Russian media. This is Russia's entirely expected response to that. Again, this is the same guy who just back in February has been moving towards bringing back the online censorship bill, which would, among other things, give the Canadian government tracking abilities, being able to basically approve what you're able to post online.
Not to mention the extreme hostility that he and his government showed to the Canadian trucker envoy when they were converging on the capital, shutting down various ways for them to receive money, shutting down various ways for them to communicate, right? So free communication is not your favorite thing. Don't say it's your favorite. It's not.
Right. And I love this hypocrisy of this guy. Remember he went to Belgium, he went to Brussels and which is in Belgium. And he lectured, he talked about slippage. He's like, we're starting to see this slippage among democracies. Like it starts out slowly, he said, almost like without an ounce of self-awareness that he himself and his own administration in Canada are doing exactly that. Slippage. Give me a break. And then, of course, this famous clip, which I want to show you, which is the European parliamentarian scolding Trudeau about this. Like, why are you coming over to Canada, or why are you coming over to EU and telling us about democracy and transparency?
The case with Mr. Trudeau. Then again, a prime minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
When Trudeau makes that speech about slippage, I just wonder who's there like, okay, like who's sitting there like, oh, he's making a point. I didn't really notice there was a slippage. Now I'm going to be on the lookout for it, right?
Yeah.
So mostly he's, go ahead.
I was going to say not only that, but he's making that slippage speech while sitting on a sled.
Right.
it's like, yeah, we feel like there's some slipping going on here, and it's like, come on, dude, you're doing it. That's the
yeah. And meanwhile, but then when people make these points, like this woman who we just saw speaking out for sort of an unpopular viewpoint, it does empower other people to say, yeah, we feel this way. We didn't think we were allowed to say it, so we're going to say it, right? There's real power in those types of words too, not sort of saying things to hear yourself talk.
Right. Well, that's what he's doing. And, again, this is the same guy who allows now Ukrainians to fly in and come into Canada, unvaccinated, by the way, which is hilarious when you think about the very thing that he was fighting against, right? They will be exempt from vaccine travel mandates and be allowed to enter and leave Canada freely.
I wonder if they can get jobs as truckers.
No.
Yeah.
Good question.
Well, I mean, no one holds his feet to the fire for things like that.
Right.
So
thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. We've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
that's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.